Stream has been approved for truth seekers by the DEFCON Truth Alliance.
If the opinion that's coming out needs people to be silenced, it's a psyop. There are psychological operations in play.
So if you can't question it, if you're supposed to just go along, it's a psyop.
Yeah, and if people have to be silenced or publicly shamed because of their information, and they're not telling people the sky's falling, they're not saying crazy shit.
Mm-hmm.
They're just saying basic stuff, and they need to be silenced. That is a psyop.
There's a war out there, old friend. A world war. And it's not about who's got the most bullets. It's about who controls the information. What we see and hear, how we work, what we think. It's all about the information.
We're the ones that were on the ground. We're the ones that are actually reporting what's going on.
Control, all units clear out from there. We're not sending anybody over to that location.
We have an Insurrection Act for a reason.
That guy can't. It's a morality tale.
The guy see, hears here, the mind believes.
Goodbye. You can run, but you can't hide.
It's gotta be biblical.
One by one, say goodbye. One by one, say goodbye. One by one, say goodbye. You can run, but you can't hide. This is warfare. This is warfare.
What's up, my brother?
What's up, Alpha Warrior? Man, you don't look like you're at home. Alpha ain't in Kansas anymore. He's in Tennessee.
I'm mobile command post, baby. Mobile command post. I'll tell you what, I learned some things. I know some adjustments that I'm going to make so that way we can, I mean, we have so many shows now. I'm like, okay, I know what I need in this setup. The next time we do a GART or another show, I know exactly how I'm going to make this. As a matter of fact, I'm going to end up getting one of those Rodecaster duals, those little small ones. But yeah, I have all these notes on what I can do to improve it and all that. So to the audience, if you can bear with this primitive mobile command post that I have right now, and we'll go from there. But no, man, a lot has happened in the last couple of days, and I look forward to tonight's conversation. But why don't you give us the opening monologue, and then I'll get us ready for some ads when you're done.
Well, listen, guys. Alpha and I, over the course of the 38 episodes that we've done on DEFCON, have kind of laid out what has been happening in the world, and from a different perspective, a different view that you're going to hear from traditional mainstream media or even these fake paid influencers all throughout social media. And we do it with a certain level of the Socratic method. We ask questions. We look at things from a military perspective. When you go into the idea of how the U.S. military operates, how psychological warfare operations take place, how influence operations take place, how warfare is conducted in the modern age, what Donald Trump has done since the time that he came into office, you begin to see various different trend lines, and you add that in with really, really good OSINT, and you add that in with, various different connections that we have on people that we can ask these types of questions to, that can direct us in the right position and the right direction to understand kind of what's going on. You get this packaging of this idea of where the world is heading, this golden age, and how Trump is laying that out by dismantling a old, corrupt network that we call the old guard. The systematic destruction of the old guard is actually what we are watching. And Iran was no different. Venezuela was no different. We predicted Venezuela. We said right after Mexico, and then we said Iran. We went in and we've been talking about what was going to happen in Iran over the course of the last month with the war that was waging on. And there's multiple different scenarios. There's multiple different perspectives that could happen. Here, the thing is we don't have all the intelligence and all the information that President Donald Trump has at his hands. One thing that we can say unequivocally is that even the people close to him, like Joe Kent and these people that are coming out saying certain things, they don't have all the information that Donald Trump is getting from people like Dan Kane and the CIA and the various different intelligence agencies and the military intelligence and his military generals and professionals that watch and look at this information every day. With that understanding, when Donald Trump makes certain comments on True Social, people take that personally. People allow their emotions and their egos to get involved when they see things like this post that Donald Trump made, which we'll talk about here in a little while, yesterday, talking about he is going to end a civilization in Iran. Now,
we had fun talking about this today.
We did. And here's the thing is, no civilization ended. And you have to understand that Donald Trump isn't always just talking to you. He isn't just talking to the American people. He's not talking to American politicians. Sometimes he's talking directly to the enemy. And that brings in the idea of psychological warfare operations. You have to understand that he is the most powerful man in the world, and his voice is the biggest in the world. And when he speaks, people listen. And when it comes to enemies and conflicts and wars, when those enemies hear those words of, I will end your civilization, I will knock you back to the Stone Age, that type of rhetoric, they have two different perspectives they can take on that. They can believe them, or they can't, or they won't. And here's the thing. Every president since Clinton, prior to Donald Trump, Iran called their bluff. Iran moved the goalpost. Iran moved the red line. Iran tested the waters and eventually won. With Donald Trump, he's shown them over the course of the last 30 days. Take me for my word, because I'm a very, very serious man. And yes, I will do this. And what happened is we have a deal, a ceasefire, 2-week ceasefire that came out of this. And we're going to break this all down, because I put out a post earlier today. I did a show yesterday where I described various different scenarios that we could see play out. And the one scenario that I said is most plausible is the one that actually happened. And there's a reason why I knew that I suspected that scenario would actually occur. And it has everything to do, not with Iran, not with Russia, but it has everything to do with the global financial system. It has everything to do with energy control and dominance. It has everything to do with everything that we've talked about with the Middle East, the various different arms deals that he's done with the GCC nations, Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, UAE. It has everything to do with Israel and what Israel has been doing for the last 30 days, undermining Donald Trump's various different proposals that he would go in there with Iran. It has everything to do with what we saw this last weekend with the rescue mission of the F-15 pilot. So buckle up, get your notepads out. We're going to have a hell of a ride tonight, because I'm going to explain to you what the hell just happened and what I think just happened. But there's caveats. This could fail drastically, but let's just hope that this moves forth with peace, and that what I'm saying that potentially could happen from this does happen, because if it does, that is a win for Donald Trump.
And President Trump doesn't lose. So with that, let's get to our amazing sponsors for tonight, folks. And first on deck, we are in the middle of the worst stretch of data breaches this country has ever seen, and it's hitting right in the middle of tax season. In the last 90 days, a government contractor that handles Medicaid and benefits for 46 states got hacked. 25 million Americans had their social security numbers and medical records stolen. The Texas AG called it the largest breach in American history. Panera Bread, 5 million customers exposed. Under Armour, 72 million email addresses dumped online, all on top of a record 3,300 data breaches in 2025 alone. Here's why you need to care, and care right now. Criminals are using this stolen data to file tax returns in your name and to take your refund. The IRS flagged 2 million returns for identity fraud last year. And if this happens to you, the average wait to get it resolved is almost 2 years. And it's not just breaches. Right now, data brokers and people search sites are publishing your name, your home address, and your phone number, even your family members' names, all searchable by anyone online. Scammers don't need to hack you. They just need to look you up. Patriot Protect fixes that. Their search and destroy protocol scans Google and over 200 data broker sites, finds your personal information, and removes it continuously. Most services tell you that your identity gets stolen. Patriot Protect removes the information criminals need to steal it in the first place. Because what we're seeing right now, Patriot Protect is offering you a 15% off any plan. Use promo code Badlands at patriot-protect.com/DEFCON, and your data is already out there, so you got to take it back. Again, that's patriot-protect.com/DEFCON. Catch episode 2 of America First Stories on Badlands Media to learn more. And I don't think that was part of it, but that's pretty cool anyways. And then let me get to our next one. Let me take that off. Everything's slow motion, baby, slow motion. But here's another good one. You guys will recognize this one. Unexpected health emergencies don't wait. Stay ahead with Save Pulse's medical emergency kit, your all-in-one solution for over 30 million common illnesses. This kit is packed with broad-spectrum antibiotics, anti-parasites like ivermectin, antifungals, anti-nausea relief, pain relievers, and anti-inflammatories. Plus, explore their top offerings: semaglutide for weight management, discounted doxycycline, azithromycin, ashwagandha supplements, and more, all at unbeatable prices with free shipping on orders over $299. Be prepared for anything. Shop Save Plus today and protect what matters most. Go to badlandsmedia.tv/meds and use code BadlandsKit for 20% off. That's badlandsmedia.tv/meds, code BadlandsKit. And you guys will see that link on the screen here in just a second. There you go. And we're back. All right. So we powered through that and now we're ready. So let's hold on, let me put our banner up too. There we go. Now we're good. All right, we're solid.
We're solid, man.
We're solid now. We got our links up there. I have our Rumble rants that are ready. So we are solid. So I need you to keep an eye on the gifted subscriptions though, because that's going to be too hard for me to see on this little screen that I got over here to my left. But other than that, I got everything else. So you were saying
in front of me. I got my phone in front of me, so I should be able to see them.
All right, good. So you were saying that. Well, I don't know if maybe you said it, but I definitely saw it in the chat. People are like, "And Israel's still getting bombed." And when me and you were on the phone earlier today talking about that, you go, "Hey, Alf, Israel's still taking hits by Iran." I said, "Yep." You said, "Israel's name wasn't mentioned in something." You want to bring us into that conversation?
Yeah. So number one, go back to Donald Trump's post. Earlier this morning, 7:06 a.m. The whole civilization will die tonight, never be brought back again. I don't want that to happen, but it probably will. However, now that we have complete and total regime change, where different, smarter, and less radicalized minds prevail, maybe something revolutionarily wonderful can happen. Who knows? We will find out tonight. One of the most important moments is the long and complex history of the world. 47 years of extortion, corruption, and death will finally end. God bless the great people of Iran. Now, I want to point something out. This is 47 years of extortion, corruption, and death by Iran, right? Right?
Right.
Donald Trump is currently at 47% approval rating, correct?
Correct.
He's the 47th president of the United States, correct?
He is. And today's
date is 4/7.
4/7.
Isn't that kind of interesting? But
I mean,
anyway.
I'm not a betting guy, but the statistically that happening, I mean, come on.
Well, it's almost like he planned this day, and I think he knew it. Now, there's a certain part of this. Now, obviously, everybody reacted with emotion, and we saw the true colors of FAGA, of fake influencers, of the mainstream media, of the Democrats, many that claim to be MAGA, aligning with Democrats calling for the 25th Amendment because of this post.
And just real quick, where did people hear that they would be calling for the 25th Amendment and the impeachment act?
Oh, we've been talking about that for weeks. So, but the part of this post that you need to get past the emotion on, the whole civilization will die tonight, never be brought back again. Just pull that out. Number two, he says, I don't want that to happen, but it probably will. Then he says something very interesting here. However, now that we have complete and total regime change, what is he? Notice how he capitalizes complete, total regime change. He capitalized those four letters. Okay, those four words. Where different, smarter, less radicalized minds prevail, maybe something revolutionarily wonderful can happen. Who knows? And who knows is all in capital letters. Now, why is that interesting? 2 days ago, after the F-15 weapons officer was saved, Donald Trump came out with a press conference, and he was talking about how this was leaked. Now, there's varying different reports that this was leaked by someone at Reuters, but there's other reports stating that this was leaked by Israel's Channel 12 by Amir Segal, which is a reporter that's very journalist, very close to Benjamin Netanyahu. Now, supposedly people are saying that that's been debunked. It has not been debunked, to the point where Amir Segal even came out and defended himself and said, I stick by my sources. I'm not disclosing them. And yes, it was me. He even came out and admitted this. So what does that mean? This man put American lives in danger by putting that information out there. And where did he get that intel from? Well, we don't know, but we can take our guesses. Now, here's the key. During the rescue of the F-15 weapons officer, something interesting happened. There was a bombing in Iran and Tehran. 50 Iranian politicians and IRGC hardliners were eliminated, killed, in what was called Israeli U.S. airstrikes. Okay? Here's the problem. Israel came out immediately after this and denied involvement.
Now, Josh, why in the world would Israel deny involvement in a coalition attack with the United States against their feared enemy, Iran, when they've been saying we want to do this with America? We're doing this together. Why come out and deny it?
Well, Alpha, I go back to the idea of pattern recognition over the last month. And that what we've seen news reports come about saying joint U.S.-Israeli airstrikes did this. You remember when there was bombing on the oil infrastructure inside Iran? And it came out on the news that this was joint U.S. and Israeli airstrikes, and CENTCOM came out and said we had nothing to do with that, to the point where Trump put out this mean post and said, what the hell is this all about? The next day, Benjamin Netanyahu came and apologized to the world and said, yeah, that was just us. The U.S. had no part in that. What have we seen is that every point that a ceasefire negotiation or an end of the war comes about, that they're meeting in Pakistan with Pakistan or whomever it is, that Israel starts bombing Iranian infrastructure, civilian areas, and it comes out as joint U.S.-Israeli airstrikes. Well, now the tables seem to have turned, that you have 50 IRGC hardliners that were eliminated. It comes out and says that Israel-U.S. airstrikes, and Israel says, we didn't do that. Now, why is that? Well, let's back up here, because there's been a lot of talk about objectives. And Donald Trump says that our military objectives have been completed. Do we know Israel's military objectives? Well, we do know Benjamin Netanyahu in that same speech that he was talking about, that he says, we have different objectives than the United States of America. So when you go back to what is being said by the two leaders, you see that it's two different wars that are being fought. Okay? Now, this is really important, but if you go back to the beginning of the war, when they took out Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, and other massive leadership within the IRGC and within the clergy and with Iranian politics. Number one is no civilian politicians have been killed. Really important. You remember Israel wanted to kill the politicians and Trump said no? Oh, I remember that. But how did Israel say that they were able to identify and know that that meeting was going to happen? They said they had people within Iran, in the IRGC, that they also, remember they were out there flaunting that Qassani, the head of the Quds Force, was working for the Mossad. By the way, and people don't know why this is kind of a joke within those circles, is because 2 years ago, after Raisi was actually killed by Iran, because he was a Mossad spy, that Qassani was actually stricken for 12 months to house arrest and basically interrogated by the IRGC as being a Mossad spy, and they cleared him. Now was Qassani... Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, finish that, but I want to plug in a thought after that one.
Yeah. Now, was Qassani a Mossad spy? I don't know. Don't care. But here's the thing, is we know Israel had infiltrated the IRGC, and we know that they had infiltrated the leadership in Iran. Now,
let me interrupt there, because that is the thought that I want to remind people of. Right around the time of the October 7th, when that went down, I'd been talking about it before, but I actually went and did a hardline post on this around that time. And I told people, Hamas is the little boogeyman and Iran is the big boogeyman. And the Israeli government, Bibi, the Mossad, they know how to weaponize that narrative. This is what they've been doing for so long. We've all witnessed it. Now, what I told people is, you're going to see two regime changes. I said, you're going to see a regime change in Iran. People can go find the post. It's still there. I'd show it to you. I can't on this computer. But you're going to see a regime change in Iran. And you're going to see a regime change in Israel. Now, I will adjust the Israel one a little bit, but that could be a conversation for another day. But what I told people is who controls Iran? This is very important. And when you look at this, if we know that, are there organic grassroots fighters in the IRGC, in Hamas? Yeah, there is. That's through the culture wars that have unfolded in these regions. But those aren't the people that control these entities. The leadership of Hamas, the leadership of the IRGC, those are all going to tie back into this intelligence network. It's going to tie into this deep state. And that's why I've been telling people, and I've said it on this show, and I've said it on other shows and in these virtual town halls, is who is the controlling the puppet strings of Iran. I even did a post the other day. I said, find out who's controlling Iran, and you'll find out who this war is against. Now, I wanted to share that because I know that's where you're probably going to go. So I'll give it back to you.
It is. But, every country, this is a power play globally. Is right now it's the race to artificial superintelligence, and the key component of that is energy acquisition, is reallocation of various different resources of the world and the control of the accessibility of those resources. That is the big theater that everybody has to start thinking about when you start watching what's happening right now in the Middle East. Now, going back into the infiltration of Iran inside of Israel, if Israel had certain objectives, then that means that they were most likely controlling people inside Iran on the side of negotiations with the United States to deviate towards their objectives. Now, what was Israel's objectives? Well, interestingly enough, Benjamin Netanyahu came out 2 weeks ago and stated exactly what their objective was. Now, this is actually much more complex than I think people are seeing, okay? Because it's not just nation states that we're talking about here. We're talking about multinational global conglomerates. We're talking about large financial institutions, insurance providers. We're talking about a whole systematic network. And there's companies that actually play a massive role in all of this. One of those companies owns a massive amount of the infrastructure within Israel. Okay. Now, what do I mean by that? Oil and gas infrastructure. One of these companies, called Chevron, by the way, if people didn't know, owns a massive amount of oil and gas infrastructure in Israel. Now, here's another caveat towards this, people, as well, so they can begin to see the alignment of this. Off of Gaza in the Med, there's a massive oil field that's owned by the Palestinian Authority. Okay. The infrastructure that is owned by that is not Western at all. It is, I think, Turkey and a few other countries. If Israel had eliminated Gaza completely, when in there and control, that they would have taken over those oil fields, and then this company that owns a lot of the infrastructure in Israel would have built out the infrastructure and taken over the infrastructure for that oil field, which is money and power and control. But Donald Trump came out with a two-state solution, so that is not going to happen right now. Now, Benjamin Netanyahu, a few weeks ago, he got in front of the podium and he said something that caught my ear, and I listened to the whole conversation and got, holy shit, this is it. He said, right now, we are moving Israel into a regional superpower and soon to be global superpower. And I said, what? Israel? How the hell are they going to do that? And he said, no longer will the people of the world be threatened with moving energy through the Straits of Hormuz. One of Israel's objectives is to control Iranian oil. And this is where it was interesting, because Donald Trump, this is a day after Donald Trump said, I think I'm going to go in and I'm going to control Iranian oil. I'm going to take their oil. And Benjamin Netanyahu said the next day, he says, no, Israel is going to control the oil. Then Donald Trump, the next day after that, comes out and says, no, we're going to make sure that the Iranian people get the oil, after Netanyahu said this. But going back to what Netanyahu said, he said, our objective is to build a pipeline from Iran into Israel, through Israel to the Med, and offload through Israeli-controlled ports. Now, who would own those pipelines? The infrastructure is owned by certain companies. And there's certain UK, British companies, Chevron, other companies that own that infrastructure. So you understand that this Chevron, yes. Well, if people don't know that Chevron is much bigger player. I mean, you had Rick Grinnell, who basically lost his position at the Trump Kennedy Senate because he went and actually negotiated terms in Venezuela. And while he was there, he actually propositioned for Chevron to get their contract renewed, which was not part of the U.S. agreement. And this was a big freaking deal. And this is one of the reasons why Rick Grinnell got ousted. And give indications out there is, let's just say that many people you probably think are pro-Israel are not being paid by Israel. I'll just leave that there. But we will go back to this other part. So, in the context of Israel, he comes out and says, we're going to build a pipeline. Well, that's an indication that he wants to control. That's how he's going to become a global superpower. Now, then you have to ask yourself, if that's Israel's objective, become a global superpower to control the energy within the Middle East through Iran, one of the largest oil depositories in the world, right? He wants to control all of Iran. He's got people inside the government that are ensuring this. He's trying to undermine Donald Trump's ceasefire and negotiations at every angle. We saw this firsthand. Then you begin to find out that the objectives between Trump and Israel are not the same. And we saw this more so in the last 24 hours. And I'm going to get into some of that. But the first thing that we have to see is we have to look at Donald Trump's post and understand that this is psychological warfare. That what Donald Trump posted right here is psychological warfare towards the people that are coming in that are leading the Iranian government right now. And this is what he said: total and complete regime change. The 50 people that were killed this last weekend, my belief is that in the midst of them were the infiltrators from the Mossad, the ones working with Israel, that were destroyed. So when Trump says a complete and total regime change, what he's talking about, he's not talking about the removal of Ali Khamenei. He's talking about what just happened this last weekend, and that now we have different, smarter, and less radicalized minds that will prevail, and now something revolutionary wonderfully can happen. And
Now
this is where
let's back up. And just for those people that are maybe new to DEFCON, new to definitely hearing this theory for the first time, and they're like, Josh, that seems a little far-fetched. Can you back us back to an incident where the U.S. wanted to use Israel to take out a certain terrorist leader, and at the last minute they backed out? Because I think that has a lot of context to what you're saying right here.
Go extrapolate.
So there was a guy that killed a bunch of U.S. forces in Iraq.
Mm-hmm.
We got information we were going to take them out, and Israel was supposed to do that with us. Israel backs out of that operation at the last second, and then there's a certain general that tells Trump we can still get this done. The U.S. goes and takes this guy out on his own, and then he comes out and he makes the statement publicly that we've all seen. He goes, hey, I'm really disappointed that Israel didn't help us with this. They were supposed to, and at the last second, they backed out. And the reason they backed out on taking out this certain general is because the theory exists. The theory that you're saying here is a theory that existed then.
Oh, Soleimani
was one of their guys. And
Right.
This is why they didn't want to participate in that attack, because if they take out one of their own guys, what does that say to the other assets that they got deployed?
And this is a great point, because this shows that when Israel denied being involved in this strike over the last weekend, that there's most likely Israeli assets within the dead that were eliminated. And that's why Israel came out and said, oh, we weren't involved in that. Good point. Great. But I want you to listen to John Solomon real quick, because this is what people need to begin to understand about Donald Trump's art of the deal and the various different posts that he makes, especially when he's talking rhetoric, global rhetoric.
John, what are the chances that a lot of this language that we're all reacting to right now is really sort of a psyops that President Trump is pulling on Iranian leadership? That's my first question. The second part of my question is, how do the occurrences of the last 24, 48 hours change the trajectory and maybe the projection of the war overall?
Boy, those are two really great questions. Let's start with the first question. 1,000%. There are psyops going on in President Trump. He's always doing that. Look at the illusion we created over the weekend, where we had the Iranians thinking the pilot was in another area. The CIA created an entire ruse so we could go get the guy where he was. We're constantly playing psychological operations games with Iran. But those.
Okay. Very important to understand, because that post that he put out is, although he was serious, is meant to bring about a psychological response from the leadership of Iran. It was for Iran. Now, a lot of people are butthurt over Trump's words. Here's a clue. They weren't meant for you. They were meant for the leadership in Iran, who have had multiple opportunities to end this and yet continue to serve their masters. This was Trump's final ultimatum, and he was 100% serious about it. Now, I don't know David Clements. I've met him a few different times. I've never really followed him. I thought he was former CIA, and I just didn't like he's involved in all of the voting stuff. But he put out a post today. And I saw this post and I said, someone fucking gets it. Someone's finally seeing what me and Alpha have been talking about this whole time. And David Clement says here, Trump's messaging on Iran should give you heartache if you think Iran is the real enemy. Iran is nothing more than a proxy for the bankers to keep us in forever wars. When Trump speaks of regime change, he's talking about the powers behind the proxy. Today is way bigger than people realize. Oh my goodness, he was spot on over the target. Okay. Now, we had a deal that came out today, and Trump kind of went out and published the comments from Arashi from Iran confirming that this was it. And I want to read this because there's a lot of nonsense going on. And Alpha will tell everybody, I called them earlier and I said, we're about to watch the ultimate rug pull. And he's like, what do you mean? I said, listen, we are about to witness the ultimate rug pull. People don't understand what is about to happen. Trump built this up and people think it's one thing, but it's completely another. And I had a post about this that I actually want to go into because I think that it's really important to kind of frame this in the correct context because, I'm all about context when I start doing posts. There's that post. There's that one. There's that one. I got to find it. I lost it. I had a whole bunch of arrangement of different posts that I wanted to talk about here. And we'll get into the Israel butthurt. And what I mean by Israel, I'm not talking about the state of Israel. I'm not talking about the good people of Israel. I'm talking about the regime of Israel, people. I'm talking about Netanyahu. I'm talking about the deep state of Israel when I say Israel. So don't mince my words or think that I'm being anti-Semitic or any of that other nonsense. But I put this post out there. And, I went and called Alpha and I explained this to him. And he's like, this is very possible. And I said, there's two scenarios of what we could see tonight. There are two probable scenarios we might see tonight. And I said, number one, the ultimate rug pull. This is what you just saw. You just saw the ultimate rug pull. And I said, it's almost like Trump has been using rhetoric because he wants people to intentionally dislike him, but at the same time to expose those who have hated him all along and expose those who have been posers in MAGA. That happened. That's happened over the last 2 days. Another angle on this, and most likely, is the tensions with Israel. Netanyahu is attempting to disrupt every negotiation that Trump has attempted. Keeping Israel guessing is the best strategy, even if the deal has been made. Remember, he said in his post, "Who knows?" in all capital letters. That was a pointing out by Trump of the Israeli journalist who leaked the F-35 information because they had the intel, and that's why he said, "Who knows?" because he's saying that they don't. An event happened the other day. The 50 Iranian IRGC officials airstrike was credited towards a joint U.S.-Israeli airstrike. Israel denied involvement. Why? We know Israel has infiltrated much of the Iranian leadership and government. That is how they got close and eliminated Khomeini. What if they still had people in place to ensure a longer war? What if Israel's objectives were running Iran and controlling the oil, as Netanyahu stated weeks ago? And I go into this. Then it doesn't align with Trump's objectives. What if a deal had already been made between Iran and the United States? The rhetoric is simply the deception opt to keep Israel thinking there is a deadline to negotiations. 8 p.m. tonight, Trump will announce a deal has been made, signed, and is complete. The rug pulls any attempt at Israel to interfere with these negotiations. Trump stated in his recent post, we now have complete and total regime change. He's referring to the elimination of the 50 Iranian leadership killed over the weekend. He then says maybe something revolutionarily wonderful can happen. Then who knows? Remember, there was a leaker who was suspected of the Israeli media of the downed pilot. Who knows indicates that if there was something wonderful about to happen, they for sure don't know. So that's a theory. Now, that theory has turned out to be fairly accurate. But there's more here. You're seeing a lot of people out there stating that Donald Trump lost this war, right? Everywhere you look, Donald Trump lost the war. The same people that were screaming he needs to be removed from the 25th Amendment, screaming that Donald Trump is going to start World War III, are the same ones saying that he lost this war. Trump won this war. If you think otherwise, you don't know who the enemy is. What has actually happened over the course of the last few weeks? Let's break this down. The Iranian government is now free from the controls of the corrupt theocracy and the European financial interest. Ayatollah Khomeini had money sitting within London banks, and most of the oil transactions were mediated through London. What do I mean by that? Iran had sanctions on them. Their oil was being ran through the Chinese yuan. That money was being run through London banks and London intermediaries. Ali Khomeini is worth $48 billion, owns real estate all throughout Europe and the UK. He keeps his money in offshore Isle of Man bank accounts, as along with his son, Mojtaba Khomeini. Mojtaba Khomeini has few different pieces of real estate. Guess where? In Israel, financed through Israeli financial institutions. Ask yourself why. Why do they have deep connections to the UK and to Israel financial institutions? Because it goes back to London as the center. That will become very, very apparent here in a minute. The Iranian terror premium used by London and large financial institutions is now obsolete. This is what caused over $30 trillion in theft over the last 3 decades. This is Peter Navarro who did this economic analysis, I believe, in the New Yorker. And so basically how this works. You have Lloyd's of London, which is one of the largest insurers of maritime traffic through the Straits of Hormuz in the world. 300-year-old company out of London, obviously, Lloyd's of London. They give insurance premiums directly to any ship transiting the Straits of Hormuz. Anytime that the Khomeini regime would come out and threaten the Strait of Hormuz, oil prices would skyrocket. But why did oil prices skyrocket? Because the insurance premiums on those ships would skyrocket. That insurance premium would then cause the price of oil and gas to skyrocket between $5 to $15 on average. Over the last 47 years, that's equivalent to roughly about $30 trillion in profitability caused by the Iran terror premium. Now, who would have the ability to provoke Khomeini? Well, it was interesting because many of the London banking institutions and large financial institutions are the big hitters within the derivatives markets. They're the ones out there buying oil futures and trading them and exchanging them for profits. And what you'd actually find, and this is what Peter Navarro actually pointed out, is that the days previous to Iran making threats on the Strait of Hormuz, these same companies and corporations in London would buy oil futures at a lower price. And then the next day, the prices would skyrocket because the insurance premium skyrocketed. And then they would sell them out to the global community and make a massive profit. In other words, this was a racket, people. It was a scam that was being orchestrated by the large London-based financial institutions. That is now over. What happened at the beginning of this war? Oil skyrocketed, and the next day it declined. First time in history, almost as much as it increased. Why? Because Lloyd's of London canceled the insurance premiums on all the oil moving through the Strait of Hormuz. Well, Donald Trump did an unexpected move. He came out and said that the United States will insure any maritime traffic moving through the Straits of Hormuz, and Lloyd's of London was basically forced to go out there and put their premiums back online, which caused oil prices to drop. Well, guess who lost money? All of the large financial institutions that were trading in the derivatives markets that had taken out future shorts the day before lost their ass once that reversal happened. So that is now obsolete because they know that the United States can step in as an intermediary insurer of the Straits of Hormuz, and you have the Khomeini regime, which is no longer in the control of the former British Empire. The large financial institutions is now removed from this global framework. So you're not going to have this Iranian terror premium active anymore. Number 3, British and Chinese oil gas infrastructure in the region has been decimated. This is so important. This is something that nobody was paying attention to. There is an article that came out 2 days ago, Alpha. Now, and this is, it's one line that I wrote here, but it's going to take me 5 to 10 minutes to explain this. But feel free to jump in with any of your questions because this is where it gets fucking Good. And we got Badlanders out there who understand what the Sovereign Alliance is. And this is what I'm about to show you in the context of the Sovereign Alliance. Going back to that same thing at the Strait of Hormuz. Remember, gas prices skyrocketed up. Well, Secretary of Treasury Scott Bessent made a radical move. He came out and reduced sanctions on Russia on any oil that was already ocean barren. In other words, any oil that Russia already had at sea was now lifted outside of the sanctions. And that's one of the things that helped to ease the global supply chain, and Russian oil went into global circulation. Well, here's the interesting part. That oil was from a Russian company known as Arctic LNG. Arctic LNG moved all of that oil out into the ocean with absolutely no buyers the day after the Alaska summit with Trump.
So let me just understand. I want to make sure I'm understanding correctly. After that summit, these tankers set off to sea with no buyers, no contracts, but investing the cost expense to travel when nobody said that they wanted to buy it. Almost like they knew maybe they would have some buyers eventually.
That's exactly right, Alpha. Now, that's kind of interesting, right? It's almost like Trump told Putin, hey, get some tankers out there. We're going to use them when we go and free Iran. Now, that was released. Okay, that's great. But what's interesting is what happened after Donald Trump released the sanctions on that. Ukraine began attacking Russian oil infrastructure. Isn't that interesting? And that, by the way, happened at the same time that you learned that Zelensky in Ukraine had made deals with the Biden administration to take the billions of dollars that were funneled into Ukraine for the war effort and smuggle hundreds of millions back into Joe Biden's campaign into Democrat fundraising. That's kind of interesting. But what you have is Ukraine begins attacking Russian oil infrastructure. Well, who's controlling Ukraine? Well, that's the UK. That's Britain. Who the Storm Shadow missiles are the ones flying into Russian oil assets. Well, why would they be pissed off about that? Because they were the ones at Lloyd's of London that had shorted the market, and they just got their asses kicked because Donald Trump reversed their position. So what you're seeing is a global energy war between large financial institutions, corporations, and nation states involved, all within various different proxies of control. But there's more, Alpha.
So before you go into the more, Josh, what you're telling me is these people are coming to America and having meetings. Trump's sending his people over there to Europe to have meetings. People are shaking hands and smiling for the cameras. But in Europe, when they saw that those ships left after Trump had that meeting, and they know those ships didn't have buyers, while all these hands were being shaken, they knew Trump's going to make a move on us.
That's right. And so they started bombing Russian oil infrastructure. Now, what also happened at this exact same time in the global political sphere? Trump comes out and says, remember he tested NATO? Said, NATO, if they want the oil, come and take it. You can come and help protect. And NATO said no. And Trump came out and said, NATO betrayed us. They weren't there when we needed them. It's a one-way street, and we're probably going to be leaving NATO at the same time that they started bombing Russian oil infrastructure. Now, a report came out 2 days ago that Russia has been feeding Iran over 55 logistics locations in intelligence of various different oil and gas infrastructure throughout Israel and the Middle East. I'll say that again. Russia has been feeding Iran with intelligence of the locations of critical oil and gas infrastructure in Israel and through the Middle East. Now,
any of those locations tied to Chevron?
Yes, actually, that's the majority of all Israeli oil infrastructure is Chevron. But what does this one say right here? British and Chinese oil and gas infrastructure in the region has been decimated. Force majeure in Iraq and Qatar. Do you remember when Iran bombed the Iraqi oil fields, and then the next day they bombed the Fars oil field in Qatar? 15% of the Qatari oil field was bombed. You remember this?
I do.
Who owned the infrastructure? British Petroleum, KNG, China, UK owned the infrastructure. Now, who
Are
gave?
are these the same people that if you rewind the clock back a couple decades, when Iran wanted to not get on board with them, these are the people that maybe had something to do with the regime change?
Wait. So there's two parts to this, actually. You can go back to the 1950s where they overthrew and then put in place the Shah, because the Shah was going to be basically their asset to the oil and gas. And then a decade later, the Shah comes out and he realizes that he's being ripped off by the UK, by British Petroleum. And so he tries to renege on the deal and renegotiate it. And that's where the US intelligence and British intelligence remove the Shah. And they do what? They go get Robini, they go get Khomeini, who's sitting in France in exile. He takes a British flight back to Iran. And then what's he do? He honors the deal with British Petroleum, but at that point in time, it was all under sanctions. I mean, yeah, so you're absolutely right that this is how they got the control mechanism within that area. And so
now Russia gives them the coordinates to specifically target the very entities that were involved with all of that.
Yeah, you know what's also interesting here is you remember Donald Trump has said this multiple different times, is that, remember he was talking about the Iraq war and he said, the Iraq war, if I was president during that time, we would have kept the oil. Why don't we own the oil? He goes, we don't own the oil or the infrastructure, but who did? Well, remember that you always heard that George Herbert Walker Bush went into to Iraq the first time to control the oil? Well, he absolutely did. Not for the United States, but for the British, for the UK, for the British expansion of the British Empire. Because who owns the infrastructure? The UK and China now. Okay? So what happened? 15% of the Qatari gas fields are decimated. That infrastructure is owned by massive amounts of UK companies, British Petroleum being one of them. Then you have the same thing happen in Iraq, which is owned by Chinese and UK infrastructure. Well, Iraq and Qatar in those areas had to issue what's known as a force majeure. That basically means that the contract cannot be completed to the obligations. In other words, the infrastructure is beyond gone, that we cannot get it back operational and that we're not going to be able to fulfill our commitments. So, really important, British and Chinese oil and gas infrastructure in the region has been decimated. So you have removal of London's interest over the Straits of Hormuz. That's obsolete. That's gone. Secondly, you have the removal of the regime in Iran that was controlling the Straits of Hormuz and for the British interest. That's gone. You have massive amounts of British and Chinese oil and gas infrastructure in the region decimated. Then here is the big freaking kicker. What was one promise that Donald Trump made to people? Because remember, people are saying, you promised no new wars. Trump never said that. Trump did say
endless wars.
That's right. But one thing that Trump did said is, I promise to make the dollar the global reserve currency. Now, in parts of the negotiations that are happening right now, and this is baseline negotiations, and you can kind of see this in the letter issued by the IRGC here. And I wanted to pull this up real quick as we go into this, because I think that this is important to go in and look at what Iran actually agreed to versus what is being said that Iran agreed to, right? And this is the official statement. I'm going to pull that off. I'm going to bring this up. This is the official statement from Iran posted by Donald Trump, okay? And it says, on behalf of the Islamic Republic of Iran, I express gratitude and appreciation to my dear brother, Prime Minister of Pakistan, Sharif, and Field Marshal Munir, for their tireless efforts to end this war in the region. In response to the brotherly request of Prime Minister Sharif in his tweet, and considering the request by the U.S. for negotiations based on its 15-point proposal, as well as announcement by POTUS about acceptance of the general framework of Iran's 10-point proposal as a basis for negotiation, I hereby declare on behalf of the Iran Supreme National Security Council, if attacks against Iran are halted, our powerful armed forces will cease their defensive operations. For a period of 2 weeks, safe passage through the Strait of Hormuz will be possible via coordination. Now, interesting parts that he says here, okay? He says, number one, that considering the request by the U.S. for negotiations based on the 15-point proposal, as in what Iran got out of this is not the agreement, it's a proposal. He says, as well as the announcement by POTUS. What did they call Trump?
POTUS.
They just called Trump POTUS. They didn't say President Donald Trump. Look, he addresses Prime Minister of Pakistan, Sharif. He calls Trump POTUS. That's interesting, isn't it? About acceptance of the general framework of Iran's 10-point proposal. Now, that's really, really crazy because part of that general proposal was the removal of Iranian sanctions. Well, I'm going to bring this post back up. Oh, that's wrong post. Well, that's actually kind of what they were talking about.
And are you up to speed on this? If not, I'll talk about it when you're done with this, about what happened with CNN, what our press secretary said, and what CNN just said recently. If not, I could plug it in real quick because it's important to what you were talking about.
Well, let me finish this one thought right here because this is going to be the boom of the night. Lifting the sanctions will come at a price of the oil being transacted in U.S. dollars. Remember, I said this is how Trump actually won the war. Lifting the sanctions, which Trump said to Iran, we will lift the sanctions. But that's going to come at the price that oil that moves through the Straits of Hormuz from Iran will be settled and transacted in U.S. dollars, not the Chinese yuan, and it'll be facilitated through U.S. transactionary mediums. That saves the U.S. dollar, people. That reinforces the U.S. dollar as a global reserve currency. Then you go, now I'll let you jump in with your part because I got a few more to talk about that are going to nail this home.
All right. So hopefully you guys can see this. So earlier today, a few hours ago, CNN goes and puts this article, and I can't see my screen no more. So can you guys still see this, Josh?
Yep,
I want to
you're
make sure
good.
you, okay. So Rapid Response puts this out. So CNN puts out this. Iran claims victory, says it forced the U.S. to accept a 10-point plan. Well, Rapid Response goes in there and says, no, attention, tag CNN. As POTUS just said, Iran's official statement is linked to his truth below and posted by an Iranian foreign minister. This alleged statement by Iran is fraud. Correct immediately. So the reason that's important is because now we get into, let me get you the next statement. And bear with me, folks, as I bring this up. CNN just responded, and let me bring this up on the screen so you guys can see it. All right, there you go. CNN just responded and says this. This was an hour ago. The statement in question was obtained by CNN from Iranian officials and reported on multiple Iranian state media outlets. We received this statement from specific official Iranian spokespeople who are known to us. So
now go back to Trump's statement on this.
I'm telling you, bro, it's exposing this entire structure of the IRGC, the people that run the IRGC, the media connections that are in this. They think that they have the narrative because Trump is communicating with the other aspect of the Iranian government, which he is working with. And what you're seeing right now is the collaboration of President Trump with these people in Iran, along with other world leaders like Pakistan, like Russia, to target the people who think that are trying to maintain control of Iran.
That's right.
When I go back to the post that I put against Joe Kent, and I talk about, you want to know if you want to know find out who's using Iran as a proxy, and you find out who's in control. That's what Trump's doing right now. They're taking out the people that control Iran as the proxy.
So, and this is the Trump post that we're talking about here. The alleged statement put out by CNN World News is fraud, and CNN well knows. The false statement was linked to a fake news site from Nigeria, and of course, immediately picked up by CNN and blared out as a legitimate headline. The official statement by Iran was just released and posted on Truth below. Authorities are looking to determine whether or not a crime was committed on the issuance of fake CNN World statement, or if it was a sick rogue player. Now, that line right there is so important. Authorities are looking to determine whether or not a crime was committed or the issuance of the fake CNN world statement or there was a sick rogue player. Because why? What Alpha just said in reading CNN's comment, that they got it from official contacts inside Iran. That's what CNN said. Is it a rogue player like, let's just say, Israel who's spreading this propaganda? The UK? CNN is owned by British companies and conglomerates, are they not? Yes, they are.
And
so we begin to see that
media to do psyops and to facilitate a narrative.
Psyops upon psyops, buddy. That's what this is about. So how has Trump won? And by the way, that's being exposed right now. They're immediately, boom, firing bait back at them. They're ready for it. Trump eliminated China's access to cheap oil underneath sanctions, as well as the propping up of the Chinese yuan. That's huge. And I'm going to talk about that here in a few minutes because there's another thing that we said, Alpha, a few weeks ago that just came true. And people didn't see it either, but I'm going to bring it in. It goes back to the sovereign alliance stuff. Okay. The Iranian people can now rebuild and formulate a new government minus the theocracy. It's just the beginning for them. Number 7, Israel, the greatest ally of the U.S., showed their true colors to the world in their attempt to undermine Trump multiple times. 8, the Strait of Hormuz will open and will transact in U.S. dollars, reasserting Trump's promise of bringing back the dollar as a global reserve currency. There is much more, but this is just the start. Okay. So Trump won this, right? Now, Xi Jinping today came out and said this. He ordered the accelerated planning and construction of new energy system to secure China's energy supply. In other words, China is in the midst of an energy crisis. Well, why? Because Donald Trump, over the course of 3 months, has completely eliminated their cheap oil. Everything that we've been talking about for the last year, Alpha, what we were saying was happening with China is true. Xi Jinping is accelerating planning and construction of new energy systems because of this. But wait, there's more. You remember when I said that we're most likely going to see some type of intervention and negotiation for peace from Russia or China? Remember we talked about that on Q After Hours?
We did.
It's loading.
This was referencing the Board of Peace, then possibly getting into the... Yeah, I do remember the conversation.
A mediator reveals a deal came together because of 2 unlikely players, Vance and China.
Look at that.
China helped get Iran across the... Remember I told you, it was going to have to be either China or Russia that goes into Iran that leads them into the negotiations. China helped get Iran across the finish line. The amount of twists and turns in this story are unbelievable.
And we said, we go, look, you're going to see the conclusion of what happens in Ukraine happen, and it's going to mirror what happens with Iran and the U.S. and Israel. And we're going to see direct involvement from, well, we're already kind of seeing it from Putin. And we see these is where those sanctions got, taken off.
Mm-hmm.
But then we said, China came out and made a statement. This was probably 3 weeks ago. No, it's probably 2 weeks ago. I don't think 3 weeks is too long. China says, hey, we'd like to be involved in this. We need to see peace being brought to this region. And we said, because this is all about, like you said, energy, the great AI race that's going on. And he said, and we said, and you're probably going to see, Putin had already hinted at it, as far as his contribution to the Board of Peace, when he said, well, unfreeze our assets, and that money can come from there. And then we said, and you will probably see China get into this, and it's going to blow everybody away, because why would they do that when they're our adversaries?
That's right. So welcome to the Sovereign Alliance. Now, plot twist. Now, Trump threatened to jail whoever leaked the message of the missing pilot story. Turns out it was Netanyahu's favorite journalist, Amit Segal, one of Israel's most influential political commentators and journalist so close to Netanyahu that Prime Minister offered him a cabinet position. And Amit has came out and admitted this and says that he'll never give up his sources. Now, this was a few days ago. This put American lives at risk, people, okay? Now, you remember I said that... number one, well, maybe I didn't say this here yet. is in the ceasefire agreement. Can you give me one word that was not in there, Alpha?
Yeah, that word or name would be Israel.
Israel was not in there. Now, I posted this on I posted this earlier, and we're seeing it on tons of different posts right now that are out there yelling and screaming all throughout X about how Israel is still getting hit by Iran. Iran launches new wave of missiles towards Israel 10 minutes after President Trump announces 2-week ceasefire, according to the IDF. Look at the community note. Trump announced a 2-week ceasefire between the U.S. and Iran, conditional on Iran reopening the Strait of Hormuz. It does not involve Israel. This is happening all over X right now. Now, there's also something very interesting about this. Go ahead.
Do you know what happened to that community note?
That one got deleted. But the one on Laura Loomer is still active.
I haven't seen that one.
Oh, let me pull this one up.
Yeah, because the one on the bricks one got taken down. And I was like, that's very interesting that community note got taken down. For all the BS that community notes puts out there, that's the one. And that's how fast it was. It wasn't even up longer than, 90 minutes before it got taken down. Probably faster than that.
You can never trust the word of a Muslim, right? And then right here, Jesse Waters. Holy smokes, missiles are raining down on Tel Aviv less than 2 hours after the ceasefire agreement. The ceasefire is only between Iran and the United States. The U.S. military has paused strikes in Iran, but Israel is still carrying out strikes, an Israel military spokesman told CNN. Okay.
So did Trump do a chess move to...
We talked about this a few weeks ago. We talked about exactly that scenario.
To tie his own hands so that if Israel wants to fight, they can fight. But Trump's in a deal with them, so now we can't get involved.
But he even baited the trap. Now, I want everybody to see this. So every time that negotiations were coming to deadlines, you would have Israeli strikes inside Iran. Remember, they're hitting critical infrastructure, and it'd be announced through the news media that it was joint U.S.-Israel strikes on Iran, and that would throw up the ceasefire, and all the negotiations would stop and cease at that point. And this is how Israel has been undermining Donald Trump's objectives to getting this ceasefire underway. So, and knowing that, Trump just used that against them, because remember what I told you earlier in my rug pull scenario, that Israel is most likely going to do something, but the deal was already made. The U.S. hadn't struck, they struck Karg Island earlier today, but there was nothing really there. But this is what I want to point out. 2 hours before the deadline of Donald Trump's ultimatum, Israel bombed the shit out of Tehran critical infrastructure. They went in and were bombing roads and bridges and airports. Okay? 2 hours before Donald Trump's deadline. So what happens? Iran doesn't respond. The announcement comes out about the ceasefire, and then Iran launches ballistic missiles into Tel Aviv. And so far, Hannity's talked about this. Jesse Waters talked about this. Mark Levin is having a conniption fit on X right now, like they're going after the ceasefire. Ah! And everybody's posting, Israel was not part of the ceasefire. And you got to remember, the original 15-point proposal from Iran included all aggressions between the U.S. and Israel stopped and ceased. And it said that Israel remove all of their troops from southern Lebanon. Well, today, that 15-point proposal turned into a 10-point proposal. What was removed? Everything mentioning Israel was removed from that proposal that was agreed and signed by Trump today.
So did Trump tell Iran, hey, you got business with Israel, that's between you and Israel. Don't be putting that in my deal.
Agreed. I think that that's what just happened, because you're not seeing anything happen on this side. People are saying that Iran has disobeyed the ceasefire. It's already started. No. Israel was not part of the ceasefire agreement. Remember, Israel was not part of any of the negotiations. Israel didn't want to negotiate. So I think Trump came out about an hour ago or something came out an hour ago that Netanyahu has been informed of the ceasefire agreement and has been told that Iran will cease all strikes at the moment that Israel ceases all their strikes. And so I believe by tomorrow we should be good on that. But it's very important to note that Israel has been getting bombarded for the last few hours and Trump's silent. And listen, he warned Netanyahu multiple different times. And I think that this one reporter that put American lives at risk was the tipping point.
Trump said, you want to FA? Now you're going to FO.
That's right.
I like that. Let me get to one of our ads real quick, brother. And then on the other end of it, we can start wrapping this up and getting into the Rumble rants. But I want to make sure I get this one in for everybody. This is an old favorite. You'll know this one.
In a quiet town at where beards grow wild and lips dare to crack without permission, one woman has suffered.
Hi, I'm Margie, and I'm Jatriot's mother.
But the world would come to know her by another name, Madame Margie, the moistureless.
Jay came home with a lip balm. It's called Soft Disclosure.
With one miraculous application, her power awakened.
Within one day, my lips were healed. It was miraculous.
But salvation came at a cost. For in the shadowed lands known only as Badlands,
You boys at Badlands are so handsome.
she saw potential.
You're covering up your beautiful faces.
And she made her demand.
Shave them all off,
Or face the consequences. Beard oil will not save you now.
and you'll look so much better.
This summer, moisturize wisely and guard your beard. Because Madame Margie, the moistureless, is always watching.
Always watching. Always watching. I'm glad we highlighted that part about the lack of Israel being part of this ceasefire agreement. The other thing too is to look at this time frame. This 2-week extension window pulls us to the end of Trump's 8-week window.
Say that again.
So the 2-week ceasefire, I think that puts us, I think it's like 3 days or 4 days past the initial 6 to 8 week window that Trump put out there.
Yep.
So this puts us right at a critical time frame.
I wonder if it's going to be 17 weeks at the end of the 2 weeks. I'm just curious about that. This is I want people to listen to what is being reported from Tel Aviv here.
Well, the Israelis, for what they know so far with the details in this 2-week delay in the war, they're not too happy with the details, but they say it's President Trump's decision to make. The Iranian response was to fire another missile at Israel.
Now, what he's not telling you is that Israel fired one 2 hours earlier, but listen to what he says about the Israeli response.
2-week delay in the war. They're not too happy with the details, but they say it's President Trump's decision to make.
They're not too happy with the details, but President Trump's decision to make.
Or maybe the lack of details.
That's right. Man, what an interesting time to be alive, huh, Alpha?
It is. It is. April 13th is a date that has my attention. I don't know if we're adding numbers again. That would be what, 17? That also puts us in that.
2 weeks from today takes us to April 21st. April 21st.
If you can, since you have a little bit more access to things in front of me, what's 8 weeks past February 28th? What's the exact day on that?
8 weeks past February 28th. I can look at that up real quick. Let me see here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. April 25th.
So April 25th, and what would and go 2 weeks before that? That would put us at
the 11th, this Saturday.
This Saturday. So that's the original time frame that Trump gave, 6 to 8 weeks. So
and we're there.
And that window, that ceasefire window, falls right within that. So it's something to be acknowledged. I'll say that much.
Man.
Let me bring up the Rumble rants. I'm not going to be able to bring these up on the screen, folks, so my apologies for that. But I will be able to read them. So, and wow, we got quite a few. So thank you guys for that. So we'll go with the first one. This is $50 coming in from T Woodward 216. Hey guys, the new White House app. When you open it, there is a white noise, and if you stick around, there's a military talking to each other. I feel like this is comms. Your thoughts? Appreciate you all. I would have to go and look at it. I haven't looked at it in a couple days, but that is interesting. If there's some white noise and then some military chatter in the background, but like I said, it's been a few days since I've been on there, so I can't comment to that. Dollar for dollar coming in from Newt Mag. Will your new setup include an alarm clock? Just revving you, brother. Boom, boom, boom. All right, Nuke Mag, I got your number, brother. $5 coming in from Princess of Galindo's. My two favorite truthers. So glad I caught this. Thank you. And dollar for dollar coming in from Realty Gal. Checkmate, bitches. Wait until you find out who you are talking to. God won. Oh, I love that post. $100, Josh. $100 coming in from Reba Hart 29. Love, love, love this show. The two of you bring it to focus for a simple mind like mine. Josh, I have a hat for you in Nashville. Alpha, CanCon, and Ash were given theirs in Deadwood. Oh, you're going to be happy about this, Josh. $5 from Frog. Jesus, Frog Fart. If a peace is to be achieved by easing sanctions on Iran, it should be conditional. We can occupy an area with our Navy like Guantanamo. Iran must guarantee their safety for a fuel depot. Anything you want to comment to that, Josh? I got a comment for it.
Yeah, Karg Island. That's what we've been talking about is the point of critical infrastructure. And I think that there might even be some deal that is made and negotiated with Karg Island. And
now to add to that, Iran must guarantee their safety. The safety is when you remove the people controlling Iran as a proxy, which is what Trump's doing right now. $10 coming in from Texas Jules. See you in Nashville, homies.
Awesome.
Tennessee. Tennessee. $20 coming in from Soar 47. Truth, respect works both ways with an ally. Enjoy Gart. Damn straight. Damn straight. That's a two-way street. $2 from Dan Wright 717. Hey, fellas. I can't rewind the current episode. I think there is a setting you can switch on your end to fix it. Chris Paul did it once. If you can, I'd love to start from the start. Much love, Dan Wright. I will check with the ladies on the back end, Dan. They're the ones that control the studio side for us. So my apologies for that. $5 from Red Ruby Rose. Thank you, guys. You're the best. Well, thank you for that, Ruby.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
$2 coming in from Arizona Dutchman. Holy cow. That was me and Josh on the phone today. $20 from Diagram 70. Great analysis, guys. Always love DEFCON ZERQ. Also, I just watched Clement's last Substack video on why he still stands with Trump. Link is on his X page. Really good. Nice. And dollar coming in from J-Law Bronco. Alpha's beard looks velvet soft. Appreciate that. Get yourself some beard oil. Get more of that. Josh, you should be getting into town pretty soon. I won't disclose that information, but I will say this, folks. Keep prayers for everybody, the content creators, the audience members, everybody. There's a lot of people in this Badlands family that are traveling right now and tomorrow and the next day. So let's keep everybody in their prayers so everybody gets here safely and everybody gets home safely. And if you haven't gotten those virtual tickets, get those virtual tickets now. So other than that, Josh, you got anything to add?
No, man, that was a great show. So it's heading off the Gart tomorrow. And I'll see everybody Thursday at the VIP dinner and in the hotel lobby. And then Friday, I think I'm on the first frickin' panel. So that's gonna be awesome.
Get ready for friction, folks. Get ready for a lot of friction. You guys do us a solid. While you're here, smash the thumb, hit the heart, leave a comment. You've put this show on the leaderboard every single episode since its inception, and we are very grateful for that. And if you're someone that we've never met before and you're coming to GART, don't be shy. Don't hesitate. Come talk to us. We are just people like you guys, and we want to hear your thoughts on things. So with that, you guys, we'll catch you in the next one. God bless and simplify.
Patriots, the fight for truth doesn't stop at the screen. It's hitting the road again. Badlands Media is rolling into Nashville on April 9th through 12th for the next stop on the Great American Restoration Tour. Join your favorite Badlands hosts and like-minded Americans for 3 powerful days. Packed with unfiltered discussions, deep dive panels, and real debate. Hear the raw truth, ask the tough questions. No topic too hot, no question too bold. GART is where our community comes alive. Tickets are on sale now at badlandsmedia.tv/GART, where you can also grab a virtual pass and watch from home. Join us to question narratives and fight for America's future. Nashville's calling. The restoration continues. Get your passes today. See you in Music City.